Welcome back, class 10. Continuing with chapter 10, Independence and the Partition of India. Today, in the last class, we finished with the reaction of the Sikhs and the scheduled caste regarding the cabinet mission plan. Now, formation of a constituent assembly, then formation of interim government, direct action by Muslim League. These are generally not that important from your ICSE point of view. So, I will start with Attlee's announcement. Events were fast moving towards a crisis. Early 1947, the Prime Minister Attlee fixed a firm date by which the British would leave India. So a date was fixed when the British will leave India. On 20th February 1947, he made a historic announcement in the House of Commons. House of Commons means it is like our Lok Sabha. House of Commons is the Lok Sabha of the British Parliament, you can say. And the House of the Lords is the Rajya Sabha of the British Parliament. He made a historic announcement in the House of Commons. The main thrust of this announcement was that the British would quit India or leave India by 30th June 1948. If the Muslim leagues did not join the Constituent Assembly, the government would have to consider to whom the powers of the central government should be handed over on due course, whether as a whole to some form of central government or in some areas of the existing provincial government. So, if the Muslim League did not join the Constituent Assembly, the government would have to consider to whom the power will be transferred. He also announced that Lord Wavell would be replaced by Lord Mountbatten. Gandhi's reaction to the statement was positive because the British were going to quit India in the near future. The Muslim League also welcomed the announcement because the Prime Minister had made it clear that the power would not necessarily be handed over to a single government for the whole of India. So, before going also they were planning to divide and partition India. So it intensified the struggle for India's partition because Attlee clearly said that there might be a single government, there might be two or three other, heads or governments to whom the power can be distributed. So communal riots broke out in Calcutta, Assam, Punjab, and Northwest Frontier Province. Now comes the Mountbatten Plan. Lord Mountbatten assumed office as Viceroy on 24th March 1947. He had been sent with a definite object of transferring power to India. He was to advise the government in England as to which of the two plans should be chosen, the one which preserved the unity of India but gave maximum power to provinces, or the other which divided India into two independent states. So which plan will he choose? The situation in India was very tense. After many consultations with Nehru, Patel, Azad, Jinnah, Liaquat Khan, Baldev Singh and others, Mountbatten came to the conclusion the sooner the power was transferred, the better for all. The Viceroy found it impossible to convince Jinnah to accept anything other than independent Pakistan because Mountbatten failed to, make Jinnah understand that stay with India. He always wanted an independent Pakistan. He was convinced that India was to be partitioned. transfer of power to Indians would only be on the basis of partition of the country. On 3rd June, he announced the plan that was known as the Mountbatten Plan. The main points of the plan were as follows. Number one, important for your exam. Partition of Bengal and Punjab. The partition of Bengal and Punjab was proposed provided that the legislative assemblies of two provinces decided in favor of partition. So the legislatures of the two provinces, that is Punjab and Bengal, would agree in favor of partition. The existing Constituent Assembly would continue to work, but the constitution framed by it would not apply to Pakistan. Thus, a separate Constituent Assembly would be constituted for those parts of India which decided in favor of partition. Sindh. The Legislative Assembly of Sindh was to take its own decision at a special meeting. Northwest Frontier Provinces, NWFP. A referendum was to be held to decide the future of the provinces. A meeting, and in that meeting, what will be the future of NWFP? It will be decided. District of Sylhet. The Muslim majority district of Sylhet was to decide by referendum whether it would join East Pakistan or remain in Assam. East Pakistan means East Bengal, now which is Bangladesh. The princely states. As regards to the princely states, the treaties with them would come to an end. They would be free to associate themselves with either of the dominions or remain independent, whatever they wanted. Boundary Commission. The plan provided the creation of a boundary commission to settle the boundaries of two dominions in case partition is decided upon, and partition was decided upon. Relations between the two new dominions. It was for the two dominions to decide what relations they would keep or they will have with the British Commonwealth and with each other. That was completely depends on the newly created new dominions. Transfer of power before the end of 1947. The plan ended with a declaration that the transfer of power would take place not in June 1948 but much earlier than that. According to Attlee, it was in June 1948, but Mountbatten, preponed it and brought it back and made it in 1947. So was the Mountbatten Plan accepted? The acceptance by the League and the Congress. The plan of partition of India was accepted by the Council of Muslim League on 10 June. No Congress leader liked the idea of partition, but everyone had to accept it as a necessary evil. There's no way out. Gandhi did not blame Mountbatten for the partition. He said that if both of us, Hindus and Muslims, cannot agree on anything else, then the Viceroy is left with no choice. Viceroy had no choice. Viceroy wanted to make peace among these two raging parties. Anyway, why did Congress accept the Mountbatten Plan? That is the partition of India. Reasons for finally accepting the Mountbatten Plan were many. Some of them are: communal rights had taken serious turn in the result of direct action of the Muslim leagues. So the partition of the country seemed to offer a way out of the chaos and anarchy. A lot of trouble was being caused by direct actions of the Muslim League, so the partition was the only way out. The League had joined the interim government to obstruct, not to cooperate. So the experience of working with the Muslim League had convinced Patel and other congressmen that it was impossible to carry on and that there must be either a partition or open war with the League. So Jinnah's right-hand man, Liaquat Ali, was holding the finance portfolio in the interim government. His interference made it difficult for any Congress minister to function efficiently. He was always creating trouble. The only alternative of partition was federation with a weak Congress. If there was no partition, so the disruptive force like dynasty, communal, regional would be kept under control with only a strong center. If there was no partition, then the center will be weak because a smaller India with a strong central authority was better than a bigger India with a weak central government. Because working with the Muslim League, the Congress will not have absolute power. So it was very difficult for the Congress people to work with the League. So it is better to get partitioned and take full control of India. The leaders felt that further delay in the transfer of the leaders felt that partition would get rid of the constitution of separate electorates and undemocratic procedures. And India could evolve a truly secular and democratic picture. Obviously, till the Muslim League will stay, obviously there will be some secular trouble and undemocratic procedures. And lastly, the leaders felt that the further delay of transfer of power would find India amidst civil war, which is very, very important. You know, the British were instigating that the rulers of the native states to assert their right to freedom. Thus, at last, the Congress had to accept the scheme of partition. It is to be noted that East Bengal, West Punjab, Sindh, and NWFP all voted for Pakistan. The district of Sylhet chose to join the East Bengal. Now, Sylhet is in Bangladesh, obviously. It was East Pakistan, then it became East Bengal. Now it is Bangladesh. So, Sylhet is still in Bangladesh, obviously. Now comes the Independence Act of 1947. The British, the Independence Bill, Indian Independence Bill, was passed by the British government on 15th July 1947. It received the royal assent signature on July 18th. The Independence Act was a short document consisting less than 20 sections and three schedules. The following were the main provisions. What were the main provisions? 2 new dominions. The Act provided for the creation of 2 independent dominions from August 15, 1947, to be known as India and Pakistan. Pakistan would comprise of East Bengal, West Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, Northwest Frontier Province, and the district of Sylhet in Assam. Sylhet was previously in Assam, then it went to Bangladesh. India was to comprise the remaining territories, included in the British India. So separation was done. Each dominion have to have a governor general. There would be a governor general for each dominions. The governor general was to function as a constitutional head. There was no sphere in which he could act against the wishes of the ministers. Similarly, provincial governors were to act on the advice of the ministers. Clear? The Governor General will act according to the ministers. Provincial governors will also act according to the advice of ministers. Constituent Assembly would serve as central legislatures. Pakistan would have a separate Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly of the 2 dominions were to serve as the central legislatures also. So they were to act as sovereign bodies, independent bodies they will act as, for the purpose of making constitution as well as their other law in the dominions. Number 4, princely state would become independent. Very important. All powers and authority exercisable by His Majesty in relation to the princely state were terminated. The state thus became independent. However, arrangements concerning customs, transit, and communications were to continue until they were denounced by the state or other 2 dominions. Abolition of the office of the Secretary of State. The office of the Secretary of State for India was to be abolished. Division of Indian Army and sharing of assets. Provision was made for division of Indian Army and sharing of assets and liabilities between 2 dominions. Safeguarding the interests of existing officers. Provision was also made for safeguarding the interests of existing officers appointed by the Secretary of State during the British Raj, who would not make any appointment in future. So the Independence Act was described as Law Samuel as an event unique in history, a treaty of peace without war. Now comes dominions of India and Pakistan. The dominions of India means separation, separate country. Of India and Pakistan came into existence on 15th August 1947. Lord Mountbatten was requested by Nehru to continue as the Governor General of India, so he became the first Governor General in the Dominion of India. Question and answer was asked. Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah became the Governor General of Pakistan. On 14th August 1947, on the eve of independence, Jawaharlal Nehru made a very memorable speech in the Constituent Assembly. You can find it in the YouTube. It is also written in the book. I'm not going through it. Thus, at last, the curtain fell on India's quest for freedom. Partition seemed to offer a way out of arson and communal killings. So it was a way out for communal riots and killings, but that was not to be. Communal carnage broke out after partition and lakhs of refugees crossed borders to escape the butchery. It took many months to restore calm. And C. Rajagopalachari was sworn as the Governor General of India, second Governor General, on 20th June 1948. He was the first and the last Governor General of Indian origin. On 26 January 1950, Dr. Rajendra Prasad assumed the President of India. And Constituent Assembly became the Parliament of India under the transitional provisions of new Constitution. Now, factors which led the British to quit India. Why did British leave all of a sudden? Number one, there was intense nationalism and above all the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma's stress on non-violence and satyagraha made our struggle unique in the world. Number two, weakened position of England in the result due to the result of the World War II, Second World War. According to some observers of the Indian scene, the transfer of power could not have been postponed even if conservatives have returned to office in 1945. So, you know what happened? The Second World War made England very weak. International pressure on England. There was an international pressure from the President of America, President of China, rulers of Russia. International pressure was there. Danger of a civil war. British leaders felt that further delay of transferring power could find India in the midst of a civil war. This could lead to a situation in which communist and other authoritarian forces might emerge as winners, so they didn't want that. Subhash Bose and the Indian National Army. Subhash was a great leader. On 26 August 1943, he made a supreme commander of the National Army. So, his intense patriotism inspired people in a remarkable manner. This was an important factor which led the British to quit India. Change in the attitude of the defense forces, very important. Last but not the least, mention should be made to the naval revolts, the navy, the army, which shook the base of the Britishers. The defense forces were no longer prepared to be oppressed and to oppress their own kith and kin. So their own people, the army and the navy under the British, Indians who were worked under the British army and the navy, they did not want to oppress their own Indians, fight against their own people. So they started revolting. So it basically shook the base of the Britishers. So with this we come to the end of chapter 10, Partition, Independence and the Partition of India. I believe you have done the question and answers of the previous chapter, chapter 9, which was Subhash Chandra Bose, forward block and the INA. So your work today is solve the questions, short questions and the structured questions. in your exercise copies, because you will not understand now, but before the examination you will understand why I'm telling you 100 times to solve it, because it will while you're solving, you'll go through the chapter, you'll understand the chapter, and it will remain as a reference. Your question answers will remain as a reference, so it will be very useful before your exams. So thank you very much for today.